Hello?
Hello.
It is I, the Great Lange. What's up, dude?
What? No, I'm the Great Line.
Okay. All right. Let's hear it. We need the big brain takes. Here we go. Guys, this is
Well, I'm
the
the big
Great
brain
Lang.
boy.
The big brain boy, the Great Lang is here. The GOAT. The guy who made one game one time and now we're all waiting for the sequel. That guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, what do you think of Frontier Strayer? Did you watch it?
Oh, yes, I've been watching all of it.
Doesn't it look like trash?
Yeah.
Dude, it looks so bad. Did you see the rails here at the very beginning of the trailer? They're just floating in the air, and they look like they look really bad. Like so bad.
Oh, that's hardly even the beginning.
All
Uh,
right, walk
where
us through
do
it.
I begin?
Go,
Let's
go
see. Everyone's noticing the pop-in, it seems.
Yeah, that's awful.
The very aggressive pop-in and how the environment scrambles every time the camera cuts around.
Yep.
Um, quite the stark contrast to those tech demo screenshots they put up a while ago,
Right.
which looked much better. Now we're seeing the real video game graphics. You know, the post-reveal graphics, the ones they tried to hide.
Yeah. Those
Which,
were
by the way,
like,
everyone thinks it's really impressive, but it's not. Like, this is stock photorealism. This is something that is much easier to do than people realize. It is bare minimum production pipeline stuff. And what they're showing. Okay, one of my biggest questions is what does this have to do with Sonic? There's nothing Sonic here. Nothing about this has anything to do with Sonic. It is a generic open world game with Sonic plopped into it. I saw one tweet saying this is what you would get if you put open world in an AI prompt. Uh, this is this is a cheap analog to every popular open world game that it's taking the lowest common denominator strains from all of them and creating one ambiguous open world-esque game, which is Sega's MO. They don't know what Sonic is or what to do with it, so they go, let's copy the popular thing, but also put the least amount of effort into it and try to make it look like everything at once, and put Sonic in it. You know, I don't get why people are impressed by this, other than wow, tech demo graphics.
uh, I honestly think this is something I was saying earlier. It's like Marvel fans. They only compare Marvel movies to other Marvel movies and not the rest of cinema. And the same thing happens in the Sonic franchise, where Sonic fans just compare Sonic games to other Sonic games. And this looks like Phantasy Star 2 or Xenoblade Chronicles with Sonic in it. It does nothing about this looks remotely Sonic.
I mean, even Xenoblade is more vibrant. It has more character. This is just nothing. It's just complete nothing. And yeah, okay, Sonic fans don't really have a good frame of reference for the franchise they're fans of, but what really blows me away is that they don't really seem to compare it to the Sonic games either, because you compare this to other Sonic games, it doesn't even look like any Sonic games.
No,
Like,
it doesn't.
as there's no art direction, there's nothing about Sonic's world that's present here. How is this even a Sonic game? It's nothing. Even the gameplay, like, there's nothing to it. It's just random puzzles where, what, you step on tiles? That's okay, but that's not even the half of it. It's very clearly the Lost World Forces character controller, completely unequipped to deal with this environment. It's janky as hell, really janky, and seems some people are noticing this at least. Sonic controls awful, like it's very visible. I don't want to hear anyone
Yes.
say, "Oh, you haven't played it yet, though. It is just a video." No, I can tell. I can tell with Forces. I can tell with every trailer they put out. I can tell within the first 2 seconds that they don't know what they're doing. Okay, it's if you actually understand how video games work and you know what Sonic is, it is not difficult to tell, even from the video alone.
No,
Yeah?
it's not.
And if we're not allowed to judge it from these short videos, then you can't praise it either. What do you have to be hyped about? There's nothing to go on, right? Just a video? Yeah?
They'll fix it, Lang. It's just a beta, okay? The game's not out
Oh,
yet.
I'm
Guys,
sure.
they'll fix it. They'll fix it.
Yeah, it's probably just early footage, right? No, this is most likely locked in. If they're doing anything now, it's probably just critical bugs. People don't understand how these pipelines work. Okay, the
Yeah,
game
they
is
have no idea
basically
how
done.
marketing works either. They think that this is like some like Twitter GIF like early access or like early work in progress. I'm like, no. This is
No.
not some like indie dev's Twitter feed. Okay, this is a there's a lot that goes into these decisions and making trailers for this stuff. This isn't random. Like
Yeah,
this is
the
the
same
best
thing
looking
happened.
footage they have of the game.
Do you remember Forces? Because they rolled it out the same way. The same thing happened. Like they showed some footage, like way late, like like way later on, they finally showed a little bit of footage, and everyone is saying, "Ah, it's probably just early version. They're probably gonna polish it up. They still got time." And like more footage came out, it still looked bad, and people were making the same exact excuses. Like it's the same timeline. How do people not put this together? It's even got like the same like tropes of like marketing that they did with Forces, and the way they're rolling out like the teaser and the gameplay footage. It's the same thing. It, People don't learn, and it's very easy to tell by the footage how janky it is, how unpolished it is. It's the same thing. This has been their MO forever. Nothing's
Yeah.
changed.
Wait, Lang, real quick, can you do your Hank Hill impression?
Now you listen here, god dang it.
Someone was like, he sounds like nerdy Hank Hill. Like, basically, yeah.
I've heard people say I sound like Hank Hill's nerdy brother or whatever.
Dude, yeah, this game's disappointing. It's not what we want. I guess we're waiting another 5 years. I don't know where. Okay, Lang, explain this to me. How is this 5 years in development? What do you think they were doing for the past 4.5? Because this
Well,
looks
that's
like the
another thing.
first
People
like
saying,
6.
"Oh, they're giving the Sonic game time now, so it will be okay." There was 4 years between Lost World and Forces. This is one more year. Okay, it's not a matter of time or budget or anything. It's a matter of competence. They don't have the right people on it, and their managers cock up everything. They don't even for like the good devs they have. They don't get to do what they need to do. It's they have people in that company that don't understand Sonic. They don't know what to do with Sonic, and they can't produce a proper game engine. It doesn't matter how much time or money you give them. You could give them all the time in the world. You give them a million years. It won't change anything because it's always going to be held back by the fact that they don't understand Sonic and they can't make a proper game engine. It Time is not the problem. They don't get Sonic.
Do you think that they're using this is obviously like a proprietary engine because it looks so terrible and it's so glitchy and it's obviously not designed for an open world. Why don't you think they just went for like Unreal? If they wanted to go for like a more realistic tone, why not just use an engine that's designed for, larger games anyways?
I mean, it's kind of funny actually because at this point, the idea of like the Hedgehog engine is novel, and some of the big game engines like Unreal can do this stuff just fine, if not better, than whatever they're trying to like scratch together on their own. It's ridiculous. Like there was no reason for Forces to have what they called Hedgehog Engine 2, which wasn't really that was more of an excuse. They lost the developers who could handle Hedgehog Engine, and they had to create a substitute, which ended up just being a subpar PBR renderer that has been solved for years now. It's so bizarre,
I
but no one knows this stuff, so everyone thinks, "Wow, Hedgehog Engine 2, it's amazing." They did. Look, they're working on Sonic, guys. They're making it good. No, this is marketing. It's marketing drivel. This is also like prop up the illusion that the Sonic franchise is strong and they know what they're doing and they're focusing on quality now. They made a subpar PBR engine, called it Hedgehog Engine 2 to get everyone's hopes up.
Yeah, my only thing is, and this is what I was saying earlier. I don't think they wanted to use Unity or Unreal because they don't want to pay royalties. They don't
That's
want to pay other
possible,
companies money.
but I think it's going to cost them more in the long run.
That's what I think. Because like even I don't know if you're familiar with CD Projekt Red.
A little bit.
Well, they've been using their own proprietary engine for like The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk, but Cyberpunk was such a massive disaster. They're like, hey, we're just going to use Unreal 5 going forward. And it's like, well, yeah, it's
I'm not to begin with. Unreal 4
yeah,
would have been
it's
fine.
yeah. I mean, this game looks like Unreal 3. I don't know. It doesn't look that good. It looks like the beginning, like maybe the late stages of PS3, early PS4. I don't know why people think this looks good. This looks like Unity
Stranding
asset
came out
pack or
years
like
ago and it has much better visuals. Like even for like bland open world terrain, Death Stranding still looks much better, and it's years prior. So I don't know what exactly there is to be excited about with this, other than Sonic's different. Okay, different doesn't mean good, right?
yeah.
This isn't Sonic. It doesn't have to be different.
Well, and apparently because it's Sonic, well, again, and this just comes back to they're comparing Sonic games to other Sonic games. Maybe this looks good but compared to what though? I don't know what this looks good compared to.
No.
Compared to like a
Forces
PS2
look
title.
better. It was at least colorful and detailed.
Yeah, I don't know. So
And
disappointing.
here I am going. Remember Forces? Remember how that had
Same
some
director, by the way.
vivid graphics? Like God, it's it pains me that I am here like praising Forces in comparison to this.
Dude, the people in the South Island server at least have functioning brain cells though, so that was reassuring to see.
Okay.
Apparently,
Hmm?
go ahead.
I was gonna go on about the character controller and how incredible it is. I'm blown away that it's clearly like the Force's character controller, and it
Yes.
cannot handle this environment. And they're using like the same cheats, shortcuts, scripted stuff to compensate for the bad movement, which is even more hilarious in the fact that it's an open world game, which defeats the whole point. You have linear movement, scripted movement in an open world environment, so you've defeated the core appeal of an open world Sonic game,
Yeah.
right? You don't even get like the free mobility or the kind of action you would get in an open world game with Sonic. No, you just go from like set piece to set piece that has the same like scripted boost character controller stuff.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Well, and then I also question like, where's the replayability in it? Like, if you finished one of these set pieces, I'm like, why would I go back to that? Like, do the rings come back? Do like it didn't lead anywhere? So is all the fun really just yeah, like you said, running from set piece to set piece, the next boost, the next spring pad, the next is it just
I
it
mean,
seems
at
like it.
least with like Breath of the Wild, like the puzzles and shrines and stuff, they're built on emergent gameplay. So you have like not only like different ways to solve puzzles, but you can approach it like creatively,
Yeah,
like in an organic way. You're not fixed to like a solution. You can approach the puzzles in all sorts of ways, and that's part of what makes Breath of the Wild so appealing, is the emergence in the gameplay. This game does not appear to have any of that because there is no mobility or momentum or physics or anything. You go into the puzzle, you do the scripted sequence, and then it's solved, and it's like that's it. So this is not Sonic's Breath of the Wild moment at all. And by the way, Sonic having a Breath of the Wild moment doesn't mean copy Breath of the Wild literally, okay? That doesn't
yeah,
mean have the tinkly piano music and the big open grass plains and the like Magitech puzzles, okay? You don't just copy Breath of the Wild to make something's Breath of the Wild. Sonic's Breath of the Wild moment would be closer to like Mario Odyssey. Mario Odyssey was Mario's Breath of the Wild moment, taking the original core formula and expanding it, right?
right.
Expanding it in a way that makes sense to that concept, that franchise. What Zelda did was take the core concepts of Zelda and extrapolate them using new technology in a way that makes sense for Zelda. You don't just copy that literally and put Sonic in it. That doesn't make Sonic of the Wild.
Well, you know what this reminds me of is when it reminds me of Sonic Lost World when Sega thought that copying Mario Galaxy was their key to stardom, but they
All
did it
Sega
so
understands is
poorly.
copying. Copy the popular thing. Put
Yeah,
Sonic in it. They don't understand Sonic, and they don't believe Sonic has any strength on its own, other than just the brand name. Take the brand name, put it in thing that's currently popular, you put them together, and that's how you expand an audience. And all it does is it alienates the core audience, and the people who are interested in those popular things are going to stick to the better alternatives. That
and the
doesn't make
people
them
with
get into
money
Sonic.
too.
Like, knockoff open world game uh, is not going to attract like the open world fans. They're going to stick to Witcher and Death Stranding and Xenoblade, right? That's not going to make them come to Sonic. So all you do is you get the worst of both, and you alienate everyone. And this has been a problem since Sonic Adventure, when their excuse for putting big in the game and the fishing gameplay was, well, we thought we could attract fishing game fans to Sonic, but all it did was take away the Sonic gameplay for the Sonic fans, and the fishing game fans did not care because it was just a bad fishing game. They already had good fishing games. So who is it for?
I have no idea. This um I think this franchise is doomed, Lang. I think we're on an island at this point. Okay, I think we're on an island and we're the crazy people now. I feel like such a boomer in this fandom. I feel like I'm stuck in the 90s. I was replaying Sonic Adventure recently and I just don't like the way that game feels either. All I
I
want,
mean,
Lang,
as
is
issues,
Utopia
I
Demo
still
2
love Sonic
right
Adventure.
now. Okay?
Huh?
Utopia Demo 2 right now. That's all I want.
We're working on Utopia, don't worry.
Today, okay? You know what you should do? You should
Hmm.
drop a second demo the day Frontiers comes out. That would be a slam dunk. That would be hilarious.
That would
Uh,
be funny, wouldn't it?
they're definitely absolutely delaying this, by the way. There's no way, and I said this when the first trailer dropped. I'm like, if they don't even have gameplay in the first trailer and they say it's a year from now, I'm like, oh, they're delaying it. Because essentially saying holiday 2020 or whatever is like the farthest way out they could imagine, right? But as it approaches and they realize the game isn't ready for holiday, it's not about the Christmas sales. It's just pushing it out because they don't want to set an actual deadline for themselves.
Oh, I hope they delay it. That gives us more time too.
Yeah, there you go. Oh my gosh, yeah,
No, okay. Something I want to clarify because this is like a misconception I get. People call me and everyone in our community like Sonic purists and say things like we want Sonic to remain exactly as it was from 1991 to 1996 and never change from that, and we just want Sonic 1 forever. That's not what we're saying. What we believe is that what was established with Sonic in the 90s was not just the peak of Sonic, but what defines Sonic, and that is the core of what Sonic is. And you should start from there, almost like as a template for how to extrapolate Sonic and create new things. It's not that we don't want new things. We want new things that are grounded in that core of what Sonic is and take after the absolute best of its expression.
right,
Like Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Sonic CD, and even to a large extent like Sonic Adventure. These were like the best of Sonic's qualities. Start from there and build the franchise off of that, which could even turn into wildly new things. The problem is that like making new things or making different things doesn't justify them, and it doesn't mean they're good. Okay, like you could make Sonic Tetris, and that could be the best Tetris game ever made, but it's bad for Sonic, and it would be bad if that set a precedent for the franchise going forward, that the Sonic games should just be like Tetris because there was a really good game with Sonic in it, and it played like Tetris and it was really good. That wouldn't make any sense, right? That's not a
right.
Sonic game. That's just a good Tetris game. Just being good on its own isn't enough. You need to create what Sonic is. And if you say you don't care what form the game takes, you just want it to be good, what are you a fan of? Go play a good game. There are countless good games out there. Why are you sticking with Sonic? Don't you come to Sonic for what Sonic uniquely is? Don't you want a good Sonic game and not just a good game? Or are you just a brand addict and all you care about is seeing Sonic's visage on the cover? It's good enough that my favorite brand is in this. The picture of Sonic is on the screen and it makes me clap. I don't care what form it takes.
Based. Yeah, I mean that's basically it at this point, right? The fandom just likes the blue hedgehog, and that's it. I even saw someone say they're like, "Oh, I hope there's other playable characters in Frontiers." I'm like, they can't even get Sonic to work properly. You think they're gonna add Knuckles? I mean, Knuckles would completely break their game, and he would probably have scripted flying events or something. Like, I mean, there's no way, or gliding events. There's no way that this game gets multiple characters at all.
I mean, what would it really add if it did? What, you get your favorite character on the screen now? What does it matter if they're devaluing that character by putting him in a bad game, in an environment where he doesn't fit? What do you get out of that? You just like seeing your character on the screen? Aren't you mad that they are devaluing the thing that you love? I see a lot people say things like, "Well, if you're just going to be a negative about it, how can you call yourself a fan?" Because I care. I care about this being good and handled properly and not devaluing the thing I love. And what's funny is that when I say things like, what are you a fan of? If you don't care about what Sonic is, people say I'm gatekeeping, but in the same breath, will say that you're not a fan if you're negative about it.
Right. Well, and this is something that's like interested me is like on Twitter, like a 12-year-old's opinion is valued the same way as like a 25-year-old's opinion is. So you can never tell because of the anonymity of Twitter who's actually saying what, and it's like it does affect it because if someone like I don't trust a 12-year-old's opinion on a franchise that they didn't grow up with at all, right? They grew up with probably the worst version of the franchise, and that's what they love. And they have no respect for the classics or what the classics did at all. It's not just
True.
gameplay wise, but it's aesthetic and everything. And so them getting on Twitter and being like, "This looks like a great Sonic game," and then everyone being like, "Yay, yes, Queen!" And then you're like, "Well, wait a minute, this looks terrible." I mean, compared to everything, if you compare it to any game outside the franchise, this doesn't look that good. It
A
really
lot of
doesn't.
these Sonic fan kids, it's not just that they don't have taste because they're kids. It's part of it is that they only know Sonic. They barely know anything else. They're like it's kind of like being terminally online, except they only know like a very few specific things that they're obsessed with, and they have no frame of reference.
Yeah, you're terminally
So it's very
Sonic
hard to
fan.
like get through to people like that. But it's not that they're entirely void of like taste or whatever, because I do see a lot of kids like get into the classics too, and there is a pretty large part of the fandom consisting even of kids that love the classic Sonic stuff. They're way into it. They're making all kinds of fan content, and they're way into the games. They love the modding scenes. It's interesting. So it goes to show that there is still some fundamental quality to that end of the franchise that is still appealing to people. And like it's not just all relativistic. It's not like, well, the one you grew up with is the one you think is good, so everything else doesn't matter. No, it's not like that. These things have fundamental qualities. They appeal to people in a timeless, universal way. It's not about relevance. And that's another argument I see a lot. Well, classic Sonic isn't relevant anymore. Modern Sonic is the relevant one. Classic Sonic is old. It's outdated. Based on what? So why did it appeal to people back then and not now? Like, what's different? Did human genetics suddenly change and now we don't find the same things appealing anymore? We're not purely bred by culture, right?
Yeah.
There are innate qualities in us and in this media that we connect with that is timeless. People still like Mickey Mouse. People still like a lot of old things, a lot of old music. Kids today discover old music and like it because it's not just nostalgia or about whether or not it's quote-unquote relevant. And besides that, modern Sonic has been around way longer than Classic. Technically speaking, Classic only lasted up to the end of the 90s. Modern Sonic has been around for over 20 years. Which one is actually outdated or overused? When, like, modern Sonic is more relevant? That started in the 90s too. How is that any more relevant? But by that logic, we need to completely reboot Sonic again, right? But we don't. We just need to go back to what was good. And don't listen to the fans. That's the trick. Fan opinions don't mean squat. Do not ever make creative decisions democratically. You just focus on what Sonic is, make it the best it can be, and you will appeal to the actual fans of Sonic, and you will even create new fans. How did Sonic create fans to begin with? It wasn't appealing to any existing fans. It had to invent something and appeal to people who had never heard of it. Sonic 1, Sonic 2, these became popular on their own merits, right? That's how you get new fans. You create good Sonic, and it will appeal to people. Build it, and they will come.
All right, we're getting some pushback, Lang. Here we go. Someone said that's literally BS, though. Classic Sonic is constantly the focus of advertisements. How about that?
I wonder why.
Well, they're trying to appeal to their original audience, right?
Why is it a big deal? Why are they latching onto it? And it is the focus of advertisements a lot, but modern Sonic has still been around way more and has been way more advertising. Like over the last 20 years, it completely dwarfs any attention Classic's gotten. Classic Sonic had one game. One game. It's had side content and advertising and some merchandise, but still just one game. Modern Sonic has had dozens and dozens of games over the last 20 years. Way more promotional material, way more in marketing, way more in merchandise. Classic Sonic pales in comparison, like, in terms of, like, the scale of its content and what it's gotten. And yet, despite that, it is still massively successful, and they're seeing value in, like, latching onto that for marketing. Why is that?
I mean, part of it is nostalgia bait, right? Like, I think Generations was huge nostalgia bait. I actually really dislike that they delineated between classic and modern. I mean, it's obvious to the rest of us, but the fact that they were like, oh, these are two different Sonics and they exist in different universes kind of ticked me off. I think it's really lame. I'd actually be fine if the franchise split at this point and classic got their own style of gameplay and modern got its own gameplay. I think they should
compromise, but I don't think that's the ideal answer.
I don't think it's the ideal answer either. Okay.
I think modern Sonic in its entirety is a symptom of their inability to create Sonic properly. And the solution is not to, like, create two parallel gameplay styles. Modern Sonic is not like they just woke up one day and decided we're going to create this unique style on purpose and call it Modern Sonic. No, all of that is what the fandom, like, defined it as. The reality is that Sonic Team cannot recreate Sonic's gameplay. They can't even create it in 2D. They can't create Sonic's physics, and they especially cannot create Sonic's physics in 3D. The gameplay styles we've gotten so far, like Boost, are a substitute. They are a compromise for their inability to create this gameplay properly, and you can still see this in the way the games are designed. Like, they still have slopes and loops and everything, but they barely work. Sometimes they don't work at all. Lost World, the slopes don't do anything, but they're there. Why? What are the loops for? They're there to substitute actual Sonic gameplay. If they were able to create Sonic gameplay properly in 3D, we wouldn't need Boost at all. These gameplay styles would probably not even exist. The solution is to just create the universal proper Sonic. And you would get much more out of that. There would be way more potential in that franchise.
Yeah. Unrelated question real quick. Sonic 2 or Sonic 3, and why?
For me, Sonic 3, by a long shot.
Okay, what's wrong with Sonic
Why?
2?
What's wrong? Well, I mean, there's quite a few things wrong with Sonic 2. I still love it. Um, but I mean, it's hardly a contest. I mean, Sonic 3 is a much bigger game. It's much more refined. It's much closer to like the vision they always had for the series. Um, I could go into detail. It'd take a
Hmm.
while. We'd be here all day.
I don't want to be here all day. Give us the TLDR because we got one of my moderators, Connor. He really likes Sonic 2, and I'm telling him that Sonic 3 is better, but
I said I love Sonic 2. I just think Sonic 3 still is much better.
it is much
Like,
better.
I mean,
But
I think it's hardly even a subjective thing. Like, there's much more to that game. It's much more refined. The level design is much more expansive. It plays better with Sonic's physics. I honestly think the music is much better. Um, Visuals definitely much better. Much more detailed, much more variety. Leans much more into Sonic's aesthetic. The story and presentation just dwarfs Sonic 2. Like, it's
there you
hardly a
go.
comparison.
All right. Are you excited for Sonic Origins?
Yeah, somewhat. I think they're doing a lot of cool things. I'm skeptical though, because I think Sega may have interfered with it and kind of messed it up a little bit. Maybe jinked it up, added some things over the devs' heads they weren't supposed to.
Okay, like what?
A drop dash.
Oh,
The drop
okay.
dash looks kind of jank. I don't think Headcanon added that. I think someone else like kind of added that in over their heads.
Interesting. You think the drop dash will drastically affect like the earlier games?
Well, yes. I mean, it changes the gameplay balance quite a bit. It's not like the games will be broken or unplayable or anything, but it does change the balance. I don't think it's going to work as well as it did in Mania, though. It doesn't. Whoever added that, like, clearly did not know what they were doing.
Yeah. Connor, what are you talking about? That cryptic tweet from Headcanon was scary? What are you talking about? What cryptic tweet from Headcanon? I don't know what he's talking about.
Probably the one where he says, "Just so you know, all we did was remake uh, Sonic 3 and stuff, and Sega did their own stuff on top of that." Something like that.
I don't understand why. So this is something I thought about. Like why they just don't reach out to a fan who's already created a 3D engine and just say, hey, we want to like we'll pay you essentially for a license for this engine because you I mean because it's still proprietary, right? Like I mean, an engine is proprietary even if you take the Sonic model out. So why wouldn't they just reach out to a fan who's made a working 3D engine and say, hey, we want to license this from you. Can we just buy it from you and then just work from there? I don't understand why they keep like it's clear they literally just ported Force's gameplay into an open world and then they neutered the boost a little bit.
Well,
Um,
this is what I've been saying. They can't do it. They can't create a proper like 3D Sonic engine. It is beyond their ability. This is why like okay, the boost formula is not something they like um deliberately decided to do one day. It's a compromise for their inability to create a proper engine. And they prove this over and over again that they really can't do more than that. Whatever's going on there is preventing them, or they just can't, like, they physically do not have the skill as programmers to create a proper 3D Sonic engine. They can barely create a proper 3D platformer engine. I've even seen people say, like, well, Forces is still, like, okay gameplay wise. It's really not. Like, it is so full of bizarre problems and things that should not exist in a platformer and it's been this way since Sonic Adventure, but it's in a lot of ways gotten worse over time. Like there's such bizarre behaviors you would have to go out of your way to fuck up in a platformer. Like something that no one seems to notice in Forces, like with the 2D character controller, um, if you jump while moving and you try to hold backwards, you keep moving. But if you
yes.
let go of the joystick, you just drop dead. Like it's the behavior is backwards. It- things like that don't make any sense. That shows like a terrible incompetence in programming basic platformer gameplay.
Yeah, like the 2D sections in the 3D games have always frustrated me. I recently played Unleashed. I know everyone memed on me for it because of how bad I was. To be fair, there was a lot of lag because I was playing on PlayStation streaming service or whatever. But when it turns 2D, you can't turn around midair or even at all, really. So when you jump in the air, you're committed to a single direction, which is so weird to me.
Yeah, because
It feels
they didn't
really
program
poorly.
that. It,
In,
the Sonic's direction is based on his resulting velocity. So, like when you jump and you're moving and you try to hold backward, you just break, and he only turns around after reaching like the 0 point, and then he flips around.
Right.
So, and this also affects things like your ability to like a jump dash or homing attack, which just adds to the levels of jank.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think this franchise is doomed, Lang. You got to save it, man. Me and you together, we'll save it. Okay. We'll give people. We'll remind people why they like Sonic. That's our our stated intent. Oh man. Although I think Freedom's gonna come out around the time my grandkids can play it. So when that happens, I'm sure it'll be fun.
I'm still looking forward to it. I want to see what you do.
Did you see my video?
I've seen some things even posted recently.
Did you see my the 45-minute Autismo video I did?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Oh, it was where does 2D Sonic go from here? And then my it was kind of like the Dear Sega video from Good Blood, except it wasn't as like stupid in its solution. So I basically had all these problems with the classics, right? And I still do. I think there's a lot of problems with the classics. Going back and playing
Yeah,
them,
there
they just
are.
feel they feel archaic, and I'm like, okay, well, how do you evolve 2D Sonic? Because Mania really made them glaring for me, and I was like, Mania's like the lives, the counters, the timer, all that stuff, the scoreboard, like stuff that I mean, the timer's fine, right? I know people like to speedrun the game, but like all the other stuff contributes directly to essentially a lives continue system that just feels so arcadey and really bad. So I'm like, well, how do you fix this? And a lot of my solutions to that are found in Freedom. And anyways, I posit a health system, and I'd be curious to know your thoughts on it, because I think if you move Sonic to an open world setting, or like even an open world, open level setting, like whether it's 3D or 2D, like Metroidvania, the solution can't be one ring for your life. You have to think of a health system that contributes, or where rings directly contribute to a health system. I don't think you can just have one ring be the solution anymore. So I was
Well,
just
okay. There is a um. Behold, I'm about to speak blasphemy, but there are aspects of '06 that I thought were interesting, and actually, yeah, I thought, okay, there are some interesting ideas in there, some things that could work if they were like expanded upon, and one of those things is the way you lose rings in like proportion to certain amounts of damage. And there you can also get like needled where like miniguns can chip away at your rings, but you don't flinch. Things can do like chip damage, and you have to like be vigilant. Like that's an interesting idea, and I don't think Sonic needs a health bar. I don't think it should take the form of health per se, but the idea of like rings having like variable loss based on damage sources, which can be variable, like weak or strong damage. Um, that could prove to be like a really interesting concept. And rather than just any hit whatsoever, you lose all your rings and start from scratch. Um, which has some pros in terms of like, yeah, that there's always high stakes to taking damage. But if you want to create like a more variable, emergent kind of game, then building rings off like a damage system could be really interesting. I think doing just health, like a regular health bar, kind of takes away from some of the appeal of Sonic and some of its like game design elements.
so then the question, or like I felt like a classic sorry, what am I looking for? Like a core aspect of classic gameplay that I wanted to keep was ring loss and having to collect rings. I felt like if I just made it a number at the bottom of your screen, then there's like a fundamental aspect of classic gameplay that's missing if you take
Yeah.
chip damage or whatever. So then it was like, okay, well, how do you make players lose rings and still be able to recollect them? I feel like having a moment in time to be able to recollect them is a core aspect of Sonic gameplay. And so I'd just be curious how you would tackle that in a health bar system, or like some sort of, you know, yeah, I guess not like directly a health bar where you have hearts and all that stuff, but some sort of gauge. So I called it the ring gauge, and essentially like a certain amount of rings contributes to like a certain health pool, and then enemies take away from that essentially.
Have you seen the like early versions of Freedom Planet?
No, I haven't.
So in like the early versions when it was still like half Sonic game, um, the health bar was like a shish kebab of rings, and you would collect rings to like stack onto your meter. And when you take damage, you would drop some of those rings, and they would just like fall off the health bar, and then you could like pick them back up, which was kind of an interesting way to do it. And so you had like a cap, like you could only hold like I don't know what it was, like 20 rings or something in the meter. And so
Mhm.
like beyond that, you couldn't collect any more. So you always had like a fixed amount you could collect, and then like losing them would be uh would have like higher stakes to it. because you could lose them much more quickly. But you wouldn't just lose all of them upon taking damage. You would just like lose portions of it depending on the damage source. So that was kind of a neat way to make a hybrid between like the ring mechanic and a health bar.
Yeah, okay. That's kind of what I was thinking, except putting a cap on it um, doesn't make sense because I want to have one, you're gonna have to pay for the second character, the hidden character, secret character. Don't say who it is if you know who it is. I think I told you. Um,
Okay.
don't say who it is, and you're gonna have to essentially pay for the character in the game, and it's gonna require hundreds of rings. So I can't put a cap of 20 or whatever and have a shish kebab essentially. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I was kind of thinking. Anyways, but you can watch the video. You may or may not like it or disagree with it. I know sometimes you don't like my takes, but which is fine. But I felt like I posited it as just an option, right? Because to me, freedom is an exploration in what 2D Sonic could be. It's not necessarily where I think it should go. It is just like, what if Sonic was a Metroidvania? How would that play? And because I like Metroidvanias and I like open-ended games, and I think if you make something similar to, you can't make Sonic like Hollow Knight or Ori because those characters are incredibly slow compared to Sonic, right? Like they're way more like Mega Man.
Yeah, way
Uh,
different kind of game design.
yeah, exactly. So adding momentum and speed to it, I think the game just needs to play more like a skate park. And this is something I say in the video. I think Sonic. This is why I like Utopia. But what if Utopia was in 2D? Like, how would that play? Where you're trying to maintain momentum and speed and parkour through an environment while, you know, moving flow. Like you get into like a flow state almost of the environment. So yeah,
Have you played Fancy Pants Adventures?
yeah, I have, yeah, long time
Yeah,
ago.
like those are like big sweeping environments, which sounds like what you're kind of thinking of for like a big open worldish like 2D Sonic game. Rather than like all these little self-contained platforming puzzles, you have kind of these larger, more sweeping environments. And actually, that's something I appreciate about like Chrono Adventure, which also approached like Metroidvania Sonic idea, and it would have these neat like long transition sections that just let you play with like Sonic speed and momentum.
Hmm. Um, Chrono Trigger. That's the Metroidvania one. I gotta play that. And then wasn't
Chrono Trigger, Chrono Adventure.
Chrono Adventure, right? Sonic Chrono Adventure. And then didn't Lake also make like an open-ended game before and
That's
after the
it.
sequel?
That's it. Chrono Adventure is his Metroidvania Sonic.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, I need to play those. I'm just curious to see how they would. Did he? How did he deal with life? Was it all the same, like one ring, or?
I don't think there was a live system, but there were checkpoints. Do you mean like taking damage?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I fuck. It's been a long time. I think it was rings.
Okay. Uh, okay, hold on. If a game has Sonic in the title and you can play as Sonic, it's a Sonic game. If you want something expected and familiar, you're playing the wrong franchise. I mean, that's kind of Sonic's identity, right? Is that it has no identity except it's
Identity
just a
has no identity
mascot.
because Sonic has been many things, guys. Come on. It doesn't matter if it's different. Well, it doesn't matter how many like like weird and confused derivatives that have come of it. Sonic still has a core identity that everything derives from. And if it's not deriving from that, there's a problem. Like even like Zelda Breath of the Wild, which radically changes Zelda's formula, is still based on the core Zelda formula and draws from like all the like important concepts that are established in Zelda, like everything that like defines its general like world and themes and gameplay concepts are all still there. It just extrapolates that. Sonic is not doing that. Sonic is just doing random things that have nothing to do with Sonic.
Right. That's how it
Like
seems.
I don't see this like argument with any other franchise. Like no one goes, "Oh, Mega Man has been many things, guys. It can be anything. It doesn't matter if the next Mega Man game plays like Bejeweled." Like no one makes arguments like that for anything but Sonic. And it just tells me that no one actually cares about what Sonic is. They're just brand addicts. They just want to see the picture on screen and clap.
Yes, give me the blue hedgehog. I will clap. You know, I actually want to play Fancy Pants Adventures. I love this game when I was in middle school, and then he released like a fully, dude, and he
It's
made all his
impressive for a Flash game.
it is, and he made all his animations at 60 frames per second, which is
Oh
kind of
yeah.
just crazy. Um, before Spine 2D was even a thing too, so mad respect.
Something I want to address because I saw a few people saying like, "You think you can make a better game? Make a better modern game." Well, you might like to know that the earliest versions of Utopia, like before it was Utopia, when it was Midori Murasaki working on the engine, it started out with like modern Sonic as a base, and it was originally trying to emulate Sonic Unleashed. So like the earliest versions of the engine were in fact emulating the modern Sonic games, and they did better. Like generally, they just were better overall. The physics were more stable. There was more actual physics, um, and Sonic handled much better. Like we, it's almost like we started with like better modern as a base, and then just made it better from there. Um, but even so, like we are still working on Utopia, and if you want to see us, like if you're going to use the argument like let's see you do better, we'll take you up on that.
Dude, holy crap! Now I want to play Fancy Pants Adventure. This actually looks like a really polished 2D experience. How did
Oh
I
yeah, it's great.
sleep on this for so long? Someone mentioned it they were like, "Oh, it sounds like you want to make Fancy Pants," and I'm like, "Wait, kind of, yeah." It's surprisingly a really good. Well, and here's the thing, and this is the thing people say a lot about Sonic is there's not a lot of momentum based speed platformers, and that's true. Like
Yeah.
Sonic is unique in that sense, but Fancy Pants seems to be kind of a response almost. Clearly, someone who likes Sonic games. This looks really really good actually. I think I think the art is needs facelift, but for a Flash game, I mean, come on.
Um, there aren't many like fast or momentum-based platformers, and a big part of that is because they're difficult to make. They are much more difficult to make than any regular platformer, and Sega kind of put themselves in a corner. Okay, I love the fact that the competition between Sonic and Mario over the years is very much like uh, um, a tortoise and the hare thing, right?
Mm.
Mario started off like very simple, very basic kind of platformer, and Sonic made something that was way more advanced. And people don't understand this. Like, Sonic is not just Mario but fast. Like the underlying like engine for Sonic is like an order of magnitude more complex than Mario. Um, like Mario is a linear physics platformer. It's like it's something you see in beginner like game programming tutorials everywhere. It's a very basic platformer. You do not see Sonic in any beginner programming tutorial. It is
Right.
much more difficult to make. It is multi-dimensional like ball physics, which was unheard of at the time, and part of what made Sonic stand out so much. And even besides the gameplay, like the presentation was way beyond Mario. The visuals, the music, it was all next level. Like Sonic 1 versus Super Mario World is like no contest in terms of like the tech and the underlying engine. Sonic just vastly outclasses it. You could argue the game design in Sonic like is technically worse. But in terms of like the technical like quality of the games, Sonic way outclasses it. Um, but as a result, it made it way more difficult to sustain that because they had to like improve on something that was already amazing, and you kind of get diminishing returns with that. And then once they got to 3D, they hit a wall because Sonic had a rough transition to 3D. Well, that's why. Um, Mario, being such a simple platformer, um, like transitioned to 3D with relative ease, and they were able to expand on the concept a lot, like giving Mario a whole parkour system and everything, because like the core gameplay is so simple, and even like the presentation is very simple, so it all translates like pretty cleanly to 3D. But Sonic is a totally different beast. Um, like the underlying engine for 3D Sonic is like okay, 2D Sonic is already like an order of magnitude beyond like Mario. 3D Sonic is like an order of magnitude beyond 2D Sonic. We're adding a whole other dimension, and the physics and everything becomes way more complicated. And this was especially a problem in with like early 3D tech. 3D games were just being invented. The tech was barely there. They had to make this work with that, with very limited time and resources. Sonic Adventure is incredible, given like the circumstances and what it had to work with. Despite how janky it is, people say it didn't age well. I think it actually aged amazingly, considering how difficult it must have been to pull that off. But that's also why you don't really see anything like this, because it is so hard to do, and no one has cracked the code, so to speak.
Yeah, you would think though that Sonic Team would have already if they were competent. You would think that programmers now would have figured out how to do this. I mean, it just feels like so many other game problems have been solved, but speed in a platformer hasn't. But even then, like people are like, "Oh, Sonic shouldn't control like a car," and I'm like, "But a open world car game is closer to how he should control than whatever we've gotten."
Kinda. I mean, okay,
It's
it is this
cars
thing
that
where it's like
I
you
mean,
think
obviously,
programmers. What?
I don't think it should be like Gran Turismo, but I'm just saying that like cars have a lot of physics and they're calculating
No,
a lot of
I know what you
complex
mean. Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Maybe a little closer to Trackmania or something like that. But
Yes.
uh, okay, like you think like yeah, shouldn't programmers have like solved this inside and out? Yes and no. It's very specific. Like 3D Sonic physics are a very specific thing, and you have to go in like knowing very precisely what you're doing, and part of that relies on like knowing exactly how 2D Sonic works, which nobody looks into. Nobody looks into how Sonic works. No one cares. Not even the fans know what Sonic is or how it works, and they don't care to look into it. Just as long as Sonic's image is on the screen, that's good enough for them. You're not supposed to think deeply about Sonic, bro. Yeah, I'm a Sonic fan and I care about Sonic, but why are you thinking about this so much? You're not supposed to care about Sonic, dude. I
Sonic
see
is for
these
kids. Okay, get a life.
bizarre arguments all the time, these contradictory arguments. Um, like, Sonic is for kids. You're not supposed to care. You're supposed to be a fan. It doesn't make any sense. But 3D Sonic, like the engine for it, that alone is very difficult. Only a small few people have ever figured it out, even partially, and made working examples. But then building a game off of that becomes way more difficult. Like even if you have the engine, that's only like part of the puzzle. You then have to figure out the game design, the production pipeline, the presentation, and everything. Incredibly difficult. How do you then build the game even with those physics? How do you know what to make? How do you design that game? And that's the one argument where like, yeah, Sonic Team would need time to figure that out, but the problem isn't even time right now. The problem is they don't even know what they're doing. They don't know how to make the engine in the first place. All the time in the world won't fix that. What they need is someone who can make the engine, then someone who understands what Sonic is and how to approach the game design. Then time is a factor. Then time is an excuse for a game being good or not.
Hmm.
Right now, um, it's not even in the ballpark. Like, it's not even part of the equation. Time is not the issue. Budget is not the issue. You need people who get Sonic and can make it work in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think competency is part of the problem, right? You could have people who don't understand Sonic on the team, but are competent programmers and artists and all this stuff. But it just seems like, yeah, whoever's leading the charge. I don't know how Morio has a job anymore. Frankly, I don't understand how this person who's, I guess it's just because the sales are there to back up what he's made, but to give the guy who's produced what three 6 out of 10s in a row, and this guy still has a job, like I wouldn't trust this person with an open world project.
Yeah, that
Um,
is weird, isn't it? But like Sega actually has a history of shuffling around developers that way, where they get like the best developers possible, like almost by a miracle, and then they shove them aside, or they push them down, or even get rid of them, and then they take like the weirdest, most inconsequential people on a project and give them leading roles. It is bizarre. Like the guy who programmed like the Chow system in Sonic Adventure, he was a genius. And do you know? Okay, after Sonic Adventure 2, do you know what task they gave him, like in Sonic Heroes? The
uh,
menus.
Coffee runner. Oh, okay.
Almost. That he programmed the menus. That's what he was put in charge of with Sonic Heroes. Like their hiring practices, their management is so bizarre, and it's almost like they are deliberately trying to sabotage their own franchise. I don't get it. Like the guy who programmed like the Hedgehog engine, he was a genius, and um, then Sega pushed him out, and so he just went to go work for Square, and he made the I think it's called the Luminous engine for Final Fantasy 15, which is
Yes.
why Final Fantasy 15 looks fucking amazing.
Yeah, the Luminous
But
engine
then,
was
like,
really
after
good.
that, yeah, and then, like, the Hedgehog engine suffered decay because they had no one who could maintain it, which is also part of why, like, in Generations, it looks, like, visually weird. Like, the tone mapping keeps blowing out and doesn't look correct because they don't have anyone who can maintain it anymore. Like, the genius behind that is gone. So, eventually, they couldn't maintain it, and they had to get rid of, like, Hedgehog engine and make Hedgehog Engine 2, you know. Um, I don't get what's going on over there. Half their problem, like, is just the management. There's something seriously wrong with like the devs they hire or put in charge of these projects, but it could just be because they're giving people all the wrong roles. Like, maybe there are people there who could do this properly, but they're taking like the guys who don't know anything about anything and putting them in charge of all the stuff they shouldn't be doing. And that might be like a big reason why these games keep turning out like they do. It's just management, and I've heard a lot about like Sega's management. It's like a whole lot of producers and micromanagers who don't know anything, who just like get into projects and just make arbitrary decisions that waste everyone's time and money. They don't listen to the engineers or the people who actually know what they're doing. They just let like their weird producers just call all the shots and make a complete mess of things. And the worst part is that like all the problems, like the engineers, the devs, they take like all the blame, and any success that comes out of it is absorbed by the producers. So like everything just kind of becomes ambiguous in the result. Like a game that could have been an A plus comes out as like a C minus. But like the producers will get credit for the fact it was higher than an F, and that's how they keep getting rehired. But the devs will be, also lambasted for it being a C minus. Um, it's it's awful. It's so awful. And like the company is full of like these parasitic producers that keep their careers going this way by like they get in devs, the people who actually know what they're doing, they ruin their work and then walk away with all the credit and the devs just get shafted. And this has been a pattern at Sega like over and over again. Like they get these devs and they just burn them out, squeeze them, like destroy all of their ambitions and then throw them away. And the producers walk away, absorbing like all the credit for any success that comes out of it. Um,
But I mean, I
that's
think this is just a
like
symptom
the
of like,
biggest internal problem with Sega.
yeah, I mean, these internal problems are pretty ubiquitous across like the games industry in general. Like a lot of politics play into how people keep their roles, and I imagine Japanese corporate people are pretty similar. Like if you have seniority or you've been with the company for a long time, I'm sure that Sega would much prefer someone who's been with the company a long time than someone who's actually a promising developer and has merit. I think they would rather keep someone like the only way I can see Morio keeping his job is he's been with the company for so long and people like him at the company. I think it's more political than that. I think the fact that
Oh,
he's
it's kind of political. It's kind of like this weird like incestuous web
yeah, but
of these
this
people
happens
who like
across most
support each
industries.
other.
It's who you know, not how good you are. That happens all the time. It happens for artists. It
Oh,
happens
sure, but
for
like
game
at Sega, it's really bad. It's like a corpse like animated by these parasites. It's horrible. Like they'll go into projects knowing nothing about Sonic or anything about how like the game works or anything about what the devs are doing, and they'll just make like arbitrary decisions. Like they don't even know. Like a lot of them don't even know that Sonic 3 has elemental barriers. For example, they don't know any of the mechanics of the original games. Like uh, God, like the um like the classic remakes and like Mania just had so many problems because of like these producers and playtesters who don't know anything just coming in and trying to tell them what to do. Like this is happening with like every Sonic game. Like Izuka, for example, and this is like one of the things that pains me the most. He's actually much more competent than he appears, and he knows what he's doing and understands Sonic pretty well. Um, but like he's given like very little actual control over these projects. He basically gets like these orders from up high to make these games in a particular way, and then he's forced to like compromise as much as he can to meet these like horrible demands, and then the game turns out ass. And then by the end of it, everyone's going like, "Fuck Izuka, he needs to be fired. I can't believe Izuka ruined another game," and he just takes all the brunt of this. Like
what makes you
because he's the
think
face of it,
Izuka
and that's
understands
deliberate.
Sonic and he's competent?
They make Izuka the face of Sonic and like the director of Sonic Team, so that he's accountable for all these terrible decisions that come from the suits and the producers who work in the background to make these games terrible.
So what makes you think Izuka is competent and that he knows what he's doing? I'm just curious.
Uh,
That he
um,
understands Sonic well.
let's just say from what I've heard over the years from various people,
Gotcha.
um, those
Because
who have worked
he
at
made
Sega
Sonic, he made Adventure 2 by himself, right? In a small team. Is that true?
by himself with a small team.
It was like
Um,
him and like 10 or 15 developers.
I mean, kinda. From what I understand, it was developed like overseas, like away from Sega's management, and they just kind of got to do what they wanted. And
Yeah, because he was
that
here in America.
yeah, they were here in the U.S. and they just kind of got to develop it independently, and that's part of what made it like as good as it was and how interesting it was. Is they got to like just express their creative vision with little interference, and it turned out to be like a really cool, interesting game. Um, but then ever since then, like everything has been very tightly controlled by Sega corporate and their ridiculous mandates.
Hmm. Did you wait?
Like
Did you
even
ever see that
like
video
okay,
by Goldbolt about the history of Sonic Adventure 2's development? It's really good.
Maybe I've seen a lot of Sonic essays.
You know.
Maybe.
Let's see. Failing to love. Let's see. Oh yeah, the fall of Sonic Team. Sega's collapse, crunch, and chaos. It's a really good
Okay.
video. I'd be curious to know what you
Yeah,
thought. I'll DM it to you.
that's another thing that like why I don't consider modern Sonic a legitimate thing because like the people who actually understood Sonic and cared about Sonic, the people who created it and had a vision for Sonic have been gone for a long time. The like aside from like Izuka who barely has any creative say over anything, um like everyone's been gone since 2006. Naka was like the last linchpin and he left um probably because of how awful '06 turned out and how little say he had over it. Um Even like Yasuhara, one of the other creators of Sonic, like left the company in 2001 and um uh made a statement that like Sega just wanted to like run Sonic into the ground with like mediocre crap that isn't anything based on the actual vision for Sonic. And no one paid attention to that. But everything he said held true. It's exactly what Sega's done. I don't consider the modern games legitimate because they are not backed by any of the people who actually understand Sonic or care about Sonic or anything. It is arbitrary ideas by people who do not know or care about Sonic. And as far as I'm concerned, it's just not really Sonic. It's this weird vestigial like membrane trying to like resemble Sonic like a skinwalker or something. Um, and this isn't just like my view of it. It's kind of literally what it is, the circumstances. Um, it's driven by people who do not understand it or care about it, and it's mostly run by like Sega's corporate mandates, which are also derived from people who do not understand Sonic. Most of it is driven by like marketing decisions. Like Sonic is the only playable character, and they keep his friends to the wayside because a bunch of journalists bitched about it in the mid 2000s. So what's with all of Sonic's friends, LMAO? Oh, this is so cringe. And so like, okay, only Sonic is allowed, and um,
But
things
Lang,
like that.
Sonic and the Black Knight. What a great
I'm
idea.
not a purist, Bushy. I'm not necessarily a purist. Like, I love Sonic Adventure. I love Sonic Adventure 2. I love a lot of the ideas that came after the classic series, even. I like Sonic Advance 2, and I know a lot of modern fans who don't even like Sonic Advance 2. Um, I think Sonic Advance 2 added a lot of good ideas to, like, the core gameplay. Um, but, like, to reiterate what I said earlier, like my ideal for Sonic isn't just redo exactly what Sonic did in 1991 forever. It's start with that as like the base, the grounding, and then expand
Right.
from it from
Yeah.
there. I think some of the modern games kind of did, but by 2006 it was just gone, and like it decayed up to that point, and then it was just gone. Um, you could make new wonderful games, even very different things, with like Sonic, like 90s incarnation of Sonic as a foundation. It can be new and different. I like the new Sonic movies, despite how much they change the source material, because it uses the source material as constitution for good new ideas that resonate with Sonic, right? Um, my issue is that the modern games don't do that at all.
What's the dude's name that's talking right now? Does he have a YouTube channel? Yeah, this is a great Lang. He's a creator of Sonic Utopia. He does have a YouTube channel. He doesn't post anything there anymore. Although I want to hear about your Aunt Burgle more, but I haven't heard those
I
stories in
post
such a
things
long time.
sometimes. I just post whatever I want on my YouTube.
Yeah, which is fun. That's what YouTube channels are for. All right, I got to get rolling because I got to get back to work and actually, produce stuff for Sega after I trash talk them for an hour straight. And
Awesome.
I'll probably get fired by them. But yeah, anyways, it's good talking to you, man. And thanks for your thoughts on Frontiers. And yeah,
Thanks for having me.
yeah. Any time I'll be streaming and more Frontiers crap comes out, I'll hit you up, see if you're around.
Sure,
And
I'll
we
gladly rant more about stuff.
perfect. Yeah, create content for me, Lane. Are you okay with me posting this?
Uh, Posting what?
Posting the video, keeping it up.
Oh yeah, sure. Also, South Island Central. Look for our Discord. You can talk to me more there. Talk to the Utopia devs, and also ask us more questions about Sonic and our views on stuff. Or you can argue our opinions and say we're wrong. That's cool. Um. Anyway, just wanted to plug that real quick. I hope that's okay.
That's fine. Yeah. South Island Central base Discord. People actually have functioning brain cells there. They were crapping all over the Frontiers trailer, so they're good people.
All
And anyways, yeah, dude. All right, I'll see you around, Ling.
right. Bye bye.
All right, peace out.